the best attack in the Premier League. He said, in my opinion, they're the best attacking team in the league by a mile. The stats say it. Everything I've seen says it in open play.
Right. We've had a good 25 minutes of being nice. Right? That stops here and now. Right? What the hell? What loopy juice is he on? What the hell is he talking about? Now, Chelsea played some really nice stuff at the start of the season. There is no doubt about that. And even when they were playing their best stuff, which was good, they were not the best attacking team in the country. Right? They were not. Since the turn of the year or thereabouts, that fast, direct, quick transition play has fizzled. Has fizzled out. You only had to look at yesterday's game as a sort of gauge to where they are. They were so weak in attack that Arsenal, who, by the way, Arsenal know they're a team that are not going to win the league, right? And they played like a team that are not going to win the league. They played like a team that was in second gear, that have bigger fish to fry. And they even said to Chelsea, in times during this game, I tell you what, have the ball. Have the ball, we'll just sit in, keep a nice shape. And Chelsea did absolutely diddly squat with it. Arsenal won this game without breaking any kind of sweat. But this is, I don't know where he gets this stuff from. I don't know, where managers come up with this guff, because it is. It's just ridiculous.
Mario, would you like to defend your former team here and their attack and see if you can find anything in Arteta's comments?
No, not really, because I think the only thing I could say, they had maybe a striker and he didn't, you understand? So that will be what Jackson, you understand, had been up and down, and now that the injury is on, we can see that he's a big miss. And then, okay, you cannot highlight Palmer as a striker because he clearly isn't, but he scored a lot of goals for them. No, I understand, look, in the sense of like the way what he said, they have the best attack. Look, they work together. He's not going to slack him off. He's not going to attack him. But what he said, the compliment that he gave him, I understand you want to give each other compliments, but it didn't really work. I mean, Chelsea didn't turn up. They were not, you understand, they had more of the ball, but I've seen that a number of times when they play. It's like, you got to make sure you penetrate. If you just hold the ball in the team and go left, right, it doesn't matter. That's just, I have the ball, and what? What do you do with it? Sometimes you got to be direct. And that is the thing with him. Defensively, Arsenal had one tactic. Keep moving, because sometimes they will struggle. Reece James sometimes right back, then Fofana center half, then right back. Then it became a mess at the back. And then in the middle of the park, they struggled too. They didn't understand the defenders' problems. Then in the middle, and then the attackers. So the whole line for Chelsea at the moment now is a problem. And that is what they got to look for. They got to understand that the spine of the team is not working well.
Well, it's interesting that it wasn't only Mikel Arteta who's been criticised by the fans for what he said after the game, because Enzo Maresca also said this about his team. I think overall we struggled a bit in the first 20 minutes, but after that we controlled the game, we created some chances. Second half the game was there, 50-50. He's insisting that his side controlled the game, Shaka.
I'm looking at the stats from the game on Sunday. Chelsea had 0.35 expected goals. Now, make what you like of expected goals as a stat, but if you have 0.35 and you control the game for 70 minutes, I'm not sure how to explain what we all witnessed.
Yeah.
Listen, the only chance I can remember, and if you want to call it that, only moment of concern that Chelsea kind of forced on Arsenal was a David Raya mistake, where the ball just skirted, for some reason, was straight at him, and he let it through his hands and clipped off his ankle and went wide. Other than that, I can't think of Chelsea really troubling Arsenal. So it makes these statements from both managers all the more confusing, which can only lead me to believe that there's a lot going on behind the scenes with Chelsea, which for starters, I don't understand why, because kind of given where they had been over previous seasons and how good we'd seen Chelsea in the first half of this season, I would not have thought in a month of Sundays that Maresca would have been in any kind of trouble. But both those statements, it sounded like, Maresca sounded like he is making a case for his job, for the job that he's doing. And in Arteta's case in the statement, he is making a case for a good friend of his to keep this job despite what we're all seeing with our eyes. Other than that, nothing makes sense about this. Nothing makes sense about Arteta's statement, Maresca's statement, the stats that we're looking at, what we saw with our own two eyes. So it has to be something more to it, which, again, I don't agree with if that's the case, but I certainly can't explain.
It's a love fest. The two of them were at City together, weren't they?
Yeah, well that's the thing. I mean, but why though? I mean, it was a poor game. They played well.
The game, it was a bore fest. I mean, it should have been played behind closed doors. I mean, it wasn't worth watching. You got one team that knows it can't win the league and played, as I said, played at a training match pace, and the other side in Chelsea, that all the good players sort of fizzled out. All the good stuff from the start of the season is pretty much gone, and that's exactly what the game was. And yet Arsenal still managed to turn up with their pyjamas on and take an easy 3 points off this Chelsea side. So none of it sort of makes sense. But next year comes around, if they beef this squad up in the summer, which I think they will, particularly up front, if they're faltering next year, we're going to get to the point where we're not looking at the squad, we're looking at the manager. And that's something he's going to have to fix quick, because people will start saying, well, he can't get us over the line. Well, he can't get us to there, and he can't get us to there. And, you know, other managers have. Not at Arsenal since Wenger, but other managers at other clubs, like Arne Slot, like managers at Chelsea, like managers at City. And it's going to come round fast to him. So he can come out with all this stuff he wants and all this sort of statistical nonsense. At the end of the day, he's probably going to have at least another season to sort this out. And if he doesn't, he could be the next manager on the hot seat, because he's had quite a few years now, Mr. Arteta, and it is really time. And they've spent a lot of money. And it is time, I think, for them really, really to take it to the next level. And he's got to be the man to do that, otherwise he'll be out.
Yeah, well,
Mikel Merino, set-piece goal, first one this year when, you know, everyone was talking that they weren't there. I said today, it almost feels like for Arsenal, the set pieces is like getting an injured player back. Once those start going in, it gives you a little bit of belief. I didn't think it was a classic game. I thought Arsenal should have took the chances and got further ahead. I thought Chelsea were quite poor. I didn't think they particularly had a threat at the top end of the pitch. Obviously, no Cole Palmer, Jackson missing, Madueke missing on the other side. But I felt like Arsenal had enough, got the goal, didn't really need to exert them too much, absorbed what Chelsea had, basically got the 3 points and got the job done.
Yeah, I think there's just a few bullet points on this game, Rob, and I think we're on the same sort of page. I mean, clearly the better team, Arsenal. Clearly the better team. Yeah. There was some slick football. I thought particularly in the first half, they looked pretty good. Mostly in control. I think Arsenal found Chelsea a little annoying, Rob, with some of the possession that they had. Without, of course, and of course we'll get to Chelsea, without looking like scoring at all. Yeah. But when you're at home, you're Arsenal, it's nice to kind of boss the game a little bit with the ball. And Chelsea possess it well, you know. So, you know, they like Chelsea, I thought, struggled in the final third. We know the players is missing for them as well. Havertz, Jesus and Bukayo Saka, Rob. They've still got really good defensive options and midfield options. And, you know, Rice had another good game, was involved. But that front line for Arsenal just isn't as it was. You mix that in with Chelsea fiddling around with the ball at the back and in midfield and go backwards and sideways and having possession of the ball, which... I don't know. I just think Arsenal are like, well, that's okay at this point in the season. They got the goal, flicked on. I think he's trying to flick it onto the back post, goes in the far corner. And it wasn't a classic, but a very good win. From Chelsea, I mean, same thing, Rob, isn't it? The final piece is pretty limp.
Tame,
you know, very, very tame. And Pedro Neto, I think, has done reasonable as a false nine, looked frustrated on his own for large periods without Cole Palmer. The creativity's gone. So, you know, across the back, they're okay with the ball, though they looked a little panicked at times defensively. I like the midfield with Chelsea. Chelsea midfield's good. And Romeo Lavia coming back is really good news for them. I think he's very good. I continue to be impressed with Wesley Fofana, who looked a little, I mean, he got fired up a little bit today and almost got the red card a little bit.
A few things he didn't need to,
But they didn't create anything, Rob, did they?
No.
They created nothing. That volley that Raya somehow let go through his arms and just went wide. Other than that, I think there was a little tiny header from Cucurella as well that was a shot on target, but it was nothing at all. So, I mean, just afterwards, Rob, when you listen to, because I watched the show and all that, and of course I listened to the manager. I mean, he must know where they're lacking. Yeah. Would you expect him to be a little bit more critical of his team, or is he okay with them?
I mean, I don't know, Rob, because it seems like there's sometimes a bit of a after-game manager's game. Like we did this quite well, and we looked like this in our possession, and we gave them problems and that. And I'm kind of looking, going, you tippy-tapped the ball and went forward and moved back, and we saw a bit of the formulaic kind of possession, but I didn't really see any threat. I don't particularly think Raya had a lot to do. I don't think Saliba and Gabriel were particularly tested in a way that you would expect from a Chelsea team. So I didn't quite see it as he does. And I don't know, Rob, it's really interesting because it feels to me in the last month or so, and again, it's a bit of a generalisation, but he just feels and seems a bit of a different person, Maresca. You know, when he first came in, I always used to love his press conferences. I used to say, you know what, I get this guy, and you know, he had his criticisms, and he answered questions, and he told you why this and why Sterling was leaving and why Enzo wasn't in the team at times and how Cole Palmer's got to do more. And, you know, there was all that stuff. And then, I don't know, it's almost like he's gone a bit short with the press. I don't know if you saw his press conference. He's a bit like one-word answers and did you not hear me? I didn't want to say... And I don't know, it just feels like... And again, this might be a new manager, Rob, his first Premier League job. You know, it's a big club like Chelsea, and we know that, you know, you've got to deal with media, you've got to deal with fans, you've got to deal with players, you've got to deal with owners. I just feel like he needs to just control himself. There's an important period between now and the end of the season. I know they're in the Conference League, and they could end up winning that, and it's another trophy, maybe not the ones they want. But I think between now and the end of the season is an important time for this Chelsea team. One, they've got to come to a little bit of a challenge now because people are chasing them. They've got to get fourth or maybe fifth will be good enough. Get over the line and get Champions League football. And then that's a hurdle that they've come over. Keep saying about this team, they've got to mature, they've got to learn. Yep. Well, there's a 9-game window now, mate, to mature and learn.
Yeah, but this was one of the consequences of going with a young squad, Rob, wasn't it? And the philosophy. Yeah. And I, you know, I kind of like applaud them doing something different. They're trying to buy up the best young talent and really build a team for the future that could dominate for a period of time. Correct. Now, the downside or the potential problem was the lack of experience, the lack of leaders, you know, young players finding their way. Some are in great form, some are not in great form. Now they've got injuries. I'll tell you what we're seeing, Rob, for me as well. There's 2 players that played today, started the game today, that are weak for me. They're weak. They need upgrades. Jadon Sancho and Christopher Nkunku.
Yeah, the 2 wide players were not.
I mean, this is all part of it, Rob. Isn't it? I mean, you find a Cole Palmer, Madueke looks like he's got a bright future, you know, and a couple of, obviously, there's some ones that look really good, and there'll be ones that aren't quite ready to go on the journey. I think this is always going to happen. Always going to happen. They're going to find little holes in the squad, and whether that's a centre forward, whether that's another wide player. And I know it seems crazy because they bought a lot of players, but this is what happens when you buy the young ones that aren't proven in the Premier League level. That they're hoping that they can go on to be superstars. Cole Palmer could be a superstar, and a couple of others in the team as well.
So I hear you, and I take your point. So is the next step, because I want to come back at you with a slightly different look. But is the next look a next young player who you say, okay, we're going to take the gamble, or, you know, going to try and get the potential? Or is there a stage where you have to go, I need to go 24, 25, little bit more know-how, a little bit more understanding of things? So that's part of my question, Rob. And then I'm going to go back to the second part is a lot of money spent, numbers in the building. I still don't think, Rob, in key positions down the centre spine of this football team, the goalkeeper, I'm still not sure. I thought Sanchez today looked a bag of nerves.
It's not that you're not sure, mate. You know.
Yeah, so that needs upgrading.
Yeah. Arsenal's Champions League hopes are hanging by a thread after they slipped to a 2-0 defeat in the first leg of their quarter-final at Real Madrid. A goal in each half from Linda Caicedo and Athenia del Castillo condemned the Gunners to only their 4th defeat in 23 matches under boss René Sledgers. With Arsenal 8 points behind leaders Chelsea in the Women's Super League and out of both domestic cups, Europe represents their last realistic chance of winning a trophy this season. But they have a lot of work to do in the return leg in North London next week after a disappointing display in the teeming rain at the Alfredo Di Stefano Stadium. In front of around 300 travelling fans braving the miserable Madrid weather, the visitors created the first clear chance after 19 minutes when Alessia Russo controlled the ball and spun just inside the Real half. The England striker threaded a perfectly weighted pass through to Steiner Blackstenius, whose shot was well saved by Maisa Rodriguez. But 2 minutes later a mistake from Gunners defender Leah Williamson gifted the opening goal to Real. The England captain was probably not helped by the sodden surface as she let a harmless-looking ball from Sina Brun slip under her foot. Colombian forward Caicedo burst through and held off Emily Fox before burying her finish in the corner for a 4th goal in the competition this season. Arsenal went close to equalising just before half-time after Russo won a free-kick 30 yards out. The cross was headed out to Beth Mead on the edge of the box, but her shot whistled just wide. Sledger shook up her misfiring forward line at the break, sending on Chloe Kelly and Caitlin Ford for Blackstenius and Mead. Caicedo almost got in again when she pounced on a misplaced pass and charged past Fox down the left, but the Gunners' fullback got back to snuff out the danger. Real suffered a blow when Melanie Leupolz went down holding her knee after playing a pass, with the Germany midfielder departing the field in tears. Arsenal's players were baying for a penalty after Kelly went down under a challenge from Maria Mendes, but referee Frida Mia Klarland said no. Kelly and Kyra Kunikros saw shots deflected wide and substitute Leah Walty forced a save from Rodriguez as the Gunners pushed for an equaliser. But their hopes of a place in the semi-finals took a major dent with 8 minutes left when goalkeeper Manuela Zinsberger could only push Del Castillo's shot across goal into the net.